All right, so let's talk about the invisible war being fought right now over your financial data. We're going to break down the whole world of FinTech cybersecurity, what the threats look like, and more importantly, how these digital fortresses are actually built to protect you.
And, to really get a handle on what's at stake here, there's nothing like a real-world story. I mean, this isn't some made-up scenario. It's a wake-up call that shows how one tiny failure can have consequences that are just, well, absolutely massive.
So, let's dive into a case study. We'll call the company involved Company G. And their story? It is the perfect and honestly kind of scary example of how one simple little mistake can just snowball into a full-blown global data crisis. And this whole thing, it wasn't like a quick smash-and-grab heist. No, this was a slow-burning disaster. So it all started pretty quietly back in 2018. But then by 2019, a rival company had somehow gotten its hands on a massive chunk of that leaked data. And get this, even now in 2024, the fallout is still hitting other companies connected to them. The ripple effects are just huge.
Okay, take a look at this number, 810 million people. That's not dollars, that's people. The number of users whose private information was just out there. It's one of the biggest leaks of its kind ever. And the crazy part? It all started with just one single unlocked digital door.
And we're not just talking about names and passwords here. No, this was way deeper. The attackers got a direct window into people's lives. I mean, what you search for, where you go, what phone or computer you're using. It was basically the complete theft of their entire digital footprint.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? The most shocking part, really, is that this massive, multi-year disaster, it wasn't because of some super genius, Mission Impossible-style hack. Not at all. It was a simple, totally preventable mistake. A misconfiguration. Someone literally just left the digital door wide open.
Look, this story about Company G, it's not some one-off thing. It's really a symptom of a much, much bigger problem facing the whole fintech world. The old idea of a bank heist with masks and getaway cars, that's ancient history. Today's heists are silent, they're digital, and they're happening all the time.
Which leads to the big question, right? How are these massive digital heists even possible? How do these attackers find the weak spots in what are supposed to be super secure systems? Well, it turns out they've got a whole toolbox for the job.
See, they're not just trying to bash down the front door anymore. They're way smarter than that. They're hitting from every conceivable angle. They exploit the way different software talks to each other. They trick you into handing over your password. They hunt for any little data leak. And they even inject their own nasty code right into the heart of the system.
Okay, so we've established the threat is sophisticated. It's coming from all sides. So how in the world do you fight back against that? Well, the answer isn't to just build one big wall. The answer is to build a digital fortress with multiple overlapping layers of defense.
This whole idea is called layered security. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like a medieval castle. A castle doesn't just have one big wall, right? It's got a moat, then it's got high walls, then watchtowers, maybe some archers, and then a fortified keep in the very center. Each layer is a totally different challenge. So if an attacker manages to cross the moat, they still have a massive wall to climb. That is exactly the principle we're talking about here.
And this digital fortress works from the outside in. Layer 1 starts with you, the user, having to prove who you are. Then Layer 2 secures your actual device, your phone or your laptop. Then Layer 3, the network itself, is protected by firewalls. Go deeper, and the application's code has been hardened against attacks. And then, finally, at the very core, the data itself is scrambled with encryption. So even if an attacker gets through all those other layers, what they find is just gibberish.
And this whole layered idea, it represents a huge shift in how we even think about security. The old way was called castle and moat, a really hard shell, but a soft, chewy center. Once you were inside the walls, everyone trusted you. The new model? It's called zero trust, and it's much simpler and, frankly, more paranoid. Never trust, always verify. It doesn't matter if you're inside or outside a network. Every single action has to prove it's legitimate.
Now, of course, companies aren't just making this stuff up as they go along. These defenses don't exist in a vacuum. They all have to operate inside a global framework of rules and standards. Think of it like an international security rulebook that sets the absolute minimum standard for how our data should be protected.
And yeah, these codes might look like a bunch of boring letters and numbers, but they are actually incredibly important blueprints. For instance, ISO 27001 is basically the gold standard for preventing data breaches. Then you've got 2771, which is all about protecting your personal privacy. And 2231? That one's crucial. It makes sure that even if a company gets hit by an attack, the services you depend on don't just vanish.
So, as we look to the future, there's one thing that is completely changing the game. It's the most powerful tool for defense, and it's also the most dangerous new weapon for attackers. Of course, I'm talking about AI. It is truly a double-edged sword in this fight.
I mean, check this out. On one side, AI is an unbelievable defender. It can spot a tiny irregularity in network data that no human would ever see, and it can even predict attacks before they happen. But the bad guys are using that exact same power to automate their hacking, create phishing emails so realistic you'd never spot them, and build malware that literally rewrites itself to stay hidden. It's a full-blown technological arms race.
In this battlefield, it's just getting bigger and bigger. The next huge fights are going to be about securing the billions of smart devices in our homes. You know, the Internet of Things. They'll be about defending these massive, sprawling cloud networks. And maybe the biggest one of all, figuring out how we protect our privacy in a world where AI can potentially see and analyze everything. Which, when you think about it, brings everything full circle, back to this idea of shared responsibility. Yes, companies absolutely have to build these incredible digital fortresses, but at the end of the day, we, the users, we hold one of the most important keys, our own awareness. You know, being able to spot a phishing email, using two-factor authentication, picking a decent password, that's one of the most critical layers in that whole fortress.
And so that leaves us with this one final and pretty heavy question. In this escalating arms race between AI attackers and AI defenders, who's actually going to win? There's no simple answer to that, but just understanding the fight and understanding our own role in it, that's the first and most important step we can all take to secure our digital future together.